I was hiding in the shadows with my fears and doubts, treading lightly, walking eggshells, lonely in the crowd. Oh, the mask I wore was smiling, I was skilled at fakery, day by day surviving as someone who wasn't me. Thankfully, that's all over now. I guess I took the long way out. What they told me as a child I never argued with. A job, a house, a wife, and babies, so that's what I did. While I played the roles of husband, father, and provider too. Reflected in the mirror was a man I hardly knew. Could say I went the circular route. Yes, I took the long way out. It's who I am, not what I do. My whole complete self, a whole complete truth. Well, better late than never is the old cliche. If I could do it all again, I wonder what I'd change. For sure I'd take back every lie I uttered, all the wounds I caused. But that's all water passed under a bridge I had to cross. So hooray for the here and the now. And here I am at last, queer and proud. Glad I took the long way out, the long way out, the long way out. Ooh. Hello. I'm Rand Bishop, and I really appreciate you sticking around for, actually, this is the last presentation of Medium Day, the last time slot anyway, and I'm very honored that you have chosen to join me. Just to give you a little bit background, I spent 45 years in the music business as a recording artist, a touring musician, a songwriter, record producer. Then I was a talent development executive at a record company. And thank you for that lovely compliment, Ariel. Appreciate that. Yes, I agree, Shirley. It's been quite a day, and I hope everybody has. It's been an experiment, and hopefully we'll finish this off on a high note. As I said, I was in the music business for a whole long time, doing all sorts of different things. And I was really, my favorite part of being in the music business was being a songwriter. And that's how I began as a writer. And I was fortunate enough along the way to have a number of my songs recorded by some pretty legendary and iconic recording artists, including some people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But in 2002, I had a #1 song entitled My List, which was a #1 on the country charts for 5 weeks and actually ended the year as the most played song on country radio that year. And I don't say this to boast, but more about Esther. We've communicated so many times, and so I'm honored that you're here for this. Anyway, this particular song got me started as an author because we got a book deal from that song, and we had a book entitled My List, 24 Reflections on Life's Priorities, which was published by McGraw-Hill. And subsequent to that, I got bit by the idea of writing outside of the confines of the 3-minute song, and have written and published 4 more books, three that are nonfiction and one that a novel. And I'm actually working on a new novel, which pertains to the subject matter at hand today, which is about my experience, based on my experience. It's somewhat autobiographical, about my experience of coming out. So what I would like to do, when I applied to have this time slot, I was very honored to be invited to do this presentation, but then I had to figure out what I was going to do for it. I had an idea of what I wanted to address, but I didn't know what I was going to actually do for the presentation. So I went through some material and I discovered an introduction to a book that I had started to write a number of years ago under a pseudonym. And I never finished it, I never published it, but being a songwriter, I like to tweak things. I love to rewrite. And so I took this and I kind of reshaped it into an essay. And I would like to read that for you now. By the way, as you've probably found out during the course of the day, there's the chat button up here and there's the Q&A button. And when I finish reading this, I would appreciate any questions you may have. And if you would enter them into the Q&A, that would be helpful. I've noticed that a lot of people are not doing that today, and maybe we can get that together this time. And that way I can be a little bit more discreet. I don't have any help in regard to moderating this discussion. And I would love to interact with you at that point. So this piece is entitled The Truth. The truth! You can't handle the truth! Jack Nicholson's ferocious, grimacing countenance, splattering saliva in Tom Cruise's face. A truly classic movie scene. The awful truth. The simple truth. The cold, hard, naked, bitter truth. Oh, I knew the truth about myself. I'd known for decades. A handful of times I'd even blurted it out loud. Just never in the presence of the ones who most deserved to hear it. The truth, they say, will set you free. But year after year, I danced around it. I stretched it. I sugarcoated it. And to be honest, I was facing the truth. What I couldn't handle was the lie. The lie my life had become. Even worse, the lie about the lie. The lie I told myself every time I looked in the mirror, that I was and had been for 20 years a true and faithful partner to my wife. The lie that said it was okay, much better in fact, to hide an integral and essential part of who I am from everyone I loved most, and everyone who, ironically, had every reason to believe they knew me, the real me, all of me. Like most human beings, I have a phenomenal capacity for bullshitting myself. What can I say? It's a gift, an innate talent. I mean, you're going about your daily life and, well, shit just happens. You know, stuff you'd prefer to keep to yourself. No need to bother anyone else with details they would surely find unpleasant. It's okay, you're thinking. It's better this way. In fact, it's kind of titillating, isn't it? Keeping a secret that absolutely nobody else knows. And really, that shit that just happened, it was just a one-time thing anyway. Surely, I said to myself, that single, surreptitious, exciting, and quite delicious encounter had purged the queer out of my system. Been there, done that, no harm, no foul, nothing to see here, let's move on. But then, damn it, that first little secret gets lonely and starts begging for company, like an only child pining for a sibling to play with. It occurred to me that I could provide my firstborn secret with a companion and treat myself to another chancy, compulsive thrill at the same time. Who would ever find out? It seemed like a win-win, so I caved. All right, little secret, you can have a friend, but just one. And that's how my double life began. More secrets began showing up, then friends of friends, then absolute strangers. Before I knew it, the plot line of my day-to-day existence resembled one of those movies where the parents are out of town and what was meant to be an intimate private party for an exclusive core group of teenage friends gets completely out of control and the house gets destroyed. Come to think of it, Tom Cruise was in one of those movies too, appropriately titled Risky Business. By this juncture, however, I was becoming extremely adept at stowing unruly skeletons in my closet. Curious that we hide them in closets. I wonder who coined that extremely apropos metaphor. It was second nature to call upon my native superhuman powers of self-delusion to fool myself into believing that it was no problem. Everything was cool. I had the whole thing under control. Well, folks, there is an absolutely perfect word for this uncanny alacrity. It's called compartmentalization, a pedantic academic-sounding 7-syllable synonym for bullshitting oneself. But as cumbersome as this expression may be, it hits the center of the bull's eye because that's precisely what we do. We negotiate our way through our lives by concocting an ever-shifting set of convenient realities. One circumstance requires us to embrace certain facts. Then, in an alternate scenario, some of those realities cease to work. So we instinctively take what we believe to be real only a few minutes ago and cram it into a to-go box and close the lid. Out of sight, out of mind. But be sure to save that set and every other set of realities. There's a good chance you'll need them later. Simultaneously, as if we're pulling off a well-practiced quick costume change, we've adopted another set of facts and values. Effortlessly, we morph into this new guise while adopting an attitude and vernacular appropriate to the situation at hand, and of course, more easily palatable to whomever else happens to be present. We so desperately want to fit in, to be accepted. We become contortionists, twisting ourselves into human pretzels. I was hyper aware of who I was outside the door of that craftsman bungalow, impulsive and insatiable, never not cruising for that next furtive connection. Once inside the house, I slipped back into my scripted role of dutiful husband, father, and provider, and I carried it off convincingly. This was my Dr. Jekyll persona. But why invite mischievous Mr. Hyde inside? What possible good would that do? Wouldn't that be selfish, even cruel? Why rock the boat? Why upset the apple cart? After all, for these last 2 decades, my better half had been busy constructing her own delusional image of the man she'd married, the steadfast husband with whom she shared a bed and a mortgage, laughter, tears, and who'd willingly partnered in conceiving, birthing, and raising a daughter. We were the perfect couple. Everybody said so. At first, my ruse required a little white lie of omission. It was no more than a minute kernel of unspoken truth. No big whoop. What she didn't know couldn't hurt her. But as those quiet kernels began to piling up, they started taking on more weight, and before long, every pocket was full. Toting this load had become burdensome and exhausting. So I'm here to testify that what they don't know can definitely hurt them, and those same unspoken secrets can hurt you too, my friend. That box of skeletal remains eventually becomes so heavy you'll need a construction crane to hoist it back up onto the closet shelf. It's so crammed full of secrets, it's no longer possible to latch it closed. Finally, it becomes radioactive and starts glowing in the dark. Every cracking open of the closet door cues a chorus of frightening, paranoid whisperings. Psst, 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 psst. Wait a minute. Who said that? No, you're not real. Go away. Leave me alone. Oh, you're alone, all those whispers hiss mockingly. Regardless of who might be sitting across the table, no matter who slumbers beside you night after night, you're even more alone than if you were stranded on a desert island with no one to talk to but a soccer ball named Wilson. You're alone with your secrets, alone with your lies, alone with the lies you have to tell about your lies, and God fucking damn it, alone with your guilt and your shame. I had battled clinical depression since my late teens. Years of living a double life, at first thrilling, it was, after all, the only part of my life I could call mine and mine alone, had me drifting further and further into the chilly shade of despair. Hell on earth, sans flames and barbed tridents. I saw no escape from a maze of my own design. My tortured, tangled thoughts told me there was only one way out. My life insurance policy would provide a substantial death benefit for my wife and kids. I had lived an adventurous, productive 60 years. Should my secret perish with me, I would be remembered fondly. Being mourned, that sounded splendid. Once again, a win-win. I'd always avoided therapy because I knew that eventually my ambivalent sexual orientation and ever more out of control extramarital diversions would have to come up. Ironically, it was at the urging of my wife that I finally agreed to give it a shot. Spilling my guts to Dr. White provided a badly needed pressure valve, until then the good doctor let the dreaded shoe drop. I had no other choice, she told me, but to rip off the Band-Aid and reveal my whole true self to the woman I'd been sleeping beside for nearly a quarter century. The next 3 sessions were dedicated to composing and rehearsing my coming out speech. The truth will out. Curious turn of phrase, right? 13 years ago this month, I outed myself to my wife. I was shocked that she was so blindsided by my revelation and that she was so devastated. Then again, imagine learning that the man you thought you'd married 22 years earlier was not real. To rub salt in a freshly opened wound, I had been unfaithful countless times, mostly with anonymous partners, therefore putting her health and well-being at risk in the process. I wanted to work things out, but within 48 hours, she declared our marriage over. I came out because I could no longer live with the lie. The truth I dared to believe would set me free. And I did feel a sense of exhilaration, but it passed quickly. Then the nagging remorse over causing someone I love such severe pain sent me spiraling down into an even deeper, darker malaise. I still saw the benefits of ending my life. Now I literally wanted to die. Once again, a hackneyed old bon mot rings true. Sometimes we have to hit rock bottom before we can make our way back up. Today, a month shy of 74 and unabashedly queer, I'm proud to let the entire world know who I really am. But I'm even more proud that the vow of total honesty I made 13 years ago on the fateful day I came out to my ex remains unbroken. I haven't lied since. And that, Jack Nicholson, is the truth. Thank you for listening to that. I hope that you found that somewhat something you could relate to a little bit, or maybe you learned something from it. Thank you for the applause, you guys. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you, Scott, for organizing this. This has been a really, really interesting day. I would love it if anyone has any actual question. Oh, Molly is asking, let me read her question. I'm stumbling with this question. 3 decades ago, I thought you were what you were immutably. And now I am learning that being attracted to both male and female doesn't necessarily make you bisexual. And I find myself even more confused about who I am than ever. Back then, I thought the acronym LGB was kind of long, but now there are so many more options. Is it common in your experience to have ever-changing thoughts about one's identity? Well, first of all, let me make a comment about the acronym that is now. I have a one-man show that is up on YouTube, which I do 18 songs and talk about this subject and other things. And I mentioned that sooner or later we're going to include the entire alphabet, and I wonder if there is going to have to be 2 P's, or whether the Pans and the Pollys are going to be fighting over who gets the P. But to me, I prefer to just use the term queer rather than bisexual, partially because from my experience, bisexuals are very easily erased by both straight people and gay people. I was very surprised when I came out originally, and a lot of my gay male friends would say, "Oh, Rand, you're queer. You're gay. Just admit it." And the honest fact is that I'm kind of in the middle of the Kinsey spectrum, and I am at times equally sexually attracted to both cisgender men and cisgender women, and trans people have gotten upset about that because I just haven't had that feeling. So my identity as a bisexual person is not ambivalent, but it is more something that I would just assume is really the business of whoever I'm with at the time. If I'm with a guy, then he should have that information. If I'm with a woman, she deserves to know that. But as far as the details of my identity, that's something that is not necessarily something I need to broadcast. So I pretty much identify myself as queer just because it's kind of an all-encompassing term, and I think it makes a political statement. It says, first of all, it claims a word that used to be so hurtful back on the school playground, and it just spits it back. It's something that I find very defiant, and it's also a political statement as well. I have, Molly, I haven't, not since my early 20s have I had really any changing thoughts about my identity, other than the fact that when I was 28 and had my first child, I decided, okay, I've gotten all the queer out of my system and I'm just going to be straight from now on. Well, that didn't work out too well. And that's why the scenario happened that I just talked about in this essay. Because I had sublimated that part of myself and didn't really use it as an identity as much as I thought that being gay required certain behavior. So once I stopped the behavior for a period of time, I thought, well, I'm finished with that. Well, as you know, that's not true. And I have a number of friends. I'm a member of a men's group of men who are out to their wives. And I've learned a lot from interacting with these guys, because there's several of them who have never acted on their same-sex attraction, but they recognize that that's part of who they are. And so that's in the bridge of the song that I just sang. It's who I am, not what I do. And so identity is a tricky thing. I agree with you about this rambling acronym, and actually people have gotten pretty pissed off at me because I joke about it. It's gotten to be pretty ungainly, awkward. Wonder if there are any things in the chat. We're still got a few minutes to go. So Jeff says, this is so much like my story. When I was acting out, when I was going out and, I was that Mr. Hyde character outside of the front door of that craftsman bungalow. I recognized over that period of time that there were a number of men who were closeted. A number of them were still married, and they were following their lust, their desire to have to act on their same-sex attraction, and I was one of them. And the ironic part of that was that here was an essential part of who I was, that the people I loved in my family, my friends, my brothers, my parents, didn't know about me. And yet these men who I was meeting on the park paths or in the bookstores or wherever didn't know my name, and I didn't know theirs, but they knew this essential part of who I was. So that's where this division in terms of my mental health was what tore me apart, because already being vulnerable to depression in the first place, to go through this being one person who had no name over here and was actually acting in a way that was really my essential self. And then with the people that I loved, my family, my children, my wife, who didn't know that part of me, that was just eventually something that just I couldn't handle anymore. And so I finally had to bite the bullet, and it was very, very difficult. Interestingly, I had actually thought that my wife had an idea, about, I'd talked to some gay friends and stuff, and they'd said, oh, it's probably just the pink elephant in the room, but it wasn't. And now she was somebody who liked to believe what she believed, and she liked to see people the way she saw them. And we had a number of gay friends, 3 gay couples who would come over and for dinner parties, and they even hated me when I came out, and had no inkling about it. So yeah, and Jay, you're right. This group is called HOW, Husbands Out to Wives, and it's an international group, and there are about 1,000 members. And we have a Zoom every Wednesday morning, and that community, being able to speak openly with other men about who I am, what my experience is in my life, has been literally a lifesaver for me. I live on the central Oregon coast where there's not a gay bar in the county. And so having moved here from Nashville 20 years ago, where there was a thriving gay community, and I was able to interact and have, those kind of being myself in a public place. Whereas there's just not enough opportunity here. Most of the queer people in this town are domesticated and partnered up, and they go to bed at 7:30. So there's not enough opportunity for us to interact. And the closest gay bar is 50 miles away, and I'm certainly not going to go drinking in a gay bar and then drive 50 miles home. So, are we finished? Can't see what time it is. We're getting very close. Just a couple minutes to go. Let me see if there's anything else. Jeff is talking about having been married for 54 years, still married out to my wife. And I'm happy. And I know, Jeff, that there are so many men like you and me. It's and the shame and the guilt that goes with, and the confusion and the depression and all of the stuff that goes with knowing who you are and yet not feeling as though you can be that person with the people that you treasure and you love, and being afraid to that your neighbors and your friends and your community members and people that you work with might judge you in a negative way, and it's likely to happen. But to have this brotherhood, of which I'm a member, is just, as I said, it's absolute lifeline for me, and it is for a number of the other men involved in that. So thank you so much for being here today, and I hope you've had a good medium day, and I hope we get an opportunity to have another one. Once again, if you go on YouTube, you can see my one-man show, which is entitled Songs, Observations, and Confessions. I have a YouTube channel, Rand Bishop, and it's now that the writer's strike is on, it's something that you can watch in long form that you may find entertaining, and as there's less and less programming and content for us to enjoy in the streaming world. So thanks again. I love you all, and have a great evening. Thanks. Bye.